The Evening Walk, February 1940, Bletchley Park, Buckinghamshire. The cold seeps through John Herivel's coat as he walks the grounds after another fruitless day. 23 years old, freshly graduated from Cambridge, and he spent the last 3 months staring at encrypted German messages that refuse to yield their secrets. The Victorian mansion looms behind him, its windows dark except for the scattered glow of offices where other mathematicians wage their quiet war against the Reich's cipher machines. His footsteps crunch on gravel. Somewhere in occupied Europe, Enigma machines chatter out their coded orders. Troop movements, bombing targets, U-boat positions. And here at Bletchley, in the wooden hut they call Hut 6, he and his colleagues can barely scratch the surface. They've had some success with the Luftwaffe's Red Network, but the process is agonizingly slow. Hours of work for a single day's messages. And tomorrow, the Germans will change all the settings, and the codebreakers will start from zero again. Herivel stops walking. In his mind, he's not standing on frozen English ground. He's in some German communications post, watching an operator arrive for the morning shift. The man is tired. It's early. He's been given his daily key settings from the codebook, which rotors to use, where to position the rings on those rotors. Standard procedure says he should then spin the rotors to a completely random starting position for his first message. But what if he doesn't? What if, in that early morning fog of exhaustion and routine, he simply leaves the rotors close to where he set the rings? The thought crystallizes with sudden clarity. Human laziness. Human error. The Germans have built an ingenious machine, but tired men operate it every morning. And if enough of them take that shortcut, their first messages of the day won't have random starting positions. They'll cluster around the actual ring settings, the very secret Bletchley needs to unlock each day's traffic. Herivel turns back toward the mansion. His breath forms clouds in the February darkness. He has no proof, no intercepted messages showing the pattern. Just a theory built on the simple observation that humans, even German military operators, are predictably human, but it might be enough. The theory takes shape. Hut 6, the next morning. Gordon Welchman looks up from his desk as Herivel explains the concept. Around them, the hut buzzes with the mechanical clatter of cipher work, the clicking of Enigma replica machines, the scratch of pencils on paper, the low murmur of mathematicians testing candidate solutions. David Rees, another of Welchman's Cambridge recruits, leans against a filing cabinet, listening. "You're betting on laziness," Welchman says slowly. "I'm betting on human nature," Herivel counters. He sketches on a chalkboard. "Look. Each morning, every German signal station receives the daily key. 3 rotors selected from a set of 5, ring settings for each rotor, plugboard connections." His chalk taps the board. The operator sets his rings, say FKR. That's what shows in the little windows of his machine. Now he's supposed to turn the rotors to a random position, completely different from FKR, for his ground setting. But what if he's sleepy? What if he just moves each rotor 1 or 2 notches? His ground setting might be GLS or EJQ, close to the ring setting, not random across the entire alphabet. Rees pushes off from the cabinet, interested now. If multiple operators do this, then the ground settings in their first messages won't be randomly distributed, Herivel finishes. They'll cluster, and that cluster will point us toward the ring settings. The theory is elegant. The Enigma machine's security rests on astronomical numbers of possible settings, rotors, rings, plugboards, combining to create billions of combinations. But this isn't an attack on the machine itself. It's an attack on the moment when a tired clerk slides rotors onto the spindle, sets the rings, and can't be bothered to spin them far from their current position before encrypting his first message key. Welchman nods slowly. "We'll need the first messages from each station every morning. Can we arrange that with the intercept sites?" They can. Across southern England, listening stations tracked German radio traffic, transcribing the dots and dashes of Morse code into letters. Now they'll prioritize, send the morning's first messages from each German transmitter straight to Hut 6. Rees suggests a way to visualize the data. A grid, what they'll come to call the Herivel square. Plot each ground setting as coordinates. If Herivel is right, instead of random scatter, they'll see clustering, a concentration of points that reveals the ring settings underneath. It's February 1940. The theory is sound. The method is ready. Now they wait to see if German operators will confirm Herivel's bet on their morning routines. The Silence March, 1940. Elmer's School, adjacent to Bletchley Park. The Herivel squares fill with random scatter. Day after day, the morning intercepts arrive, and the ground settings plot across the grid with no discernible pattern. Either German operators are more diligent than Herivel predicted, or the insight, brilliant as it seemed that February evening, was wrong. Herivel sits in a corner of Elmer's School, a requisitioned building where Hut 6 has expanded its operations. Before him lies his actual work, testing candidate solutions passed down from the decryption teams, working out plugboard settings letter by painstaking letter. It's mechanical labor, essential but grinding, the kind of work that fills hours while producing inch-by-inch progress against the German cipher. Around him, other mathematicians bent over their own desks. The recruitment net has widened. Cambridge dons, recent graduates, chess champions, anyone with the right kind of mind for this peculiar warfare. They work in shifts, around the clock, because German signals don't stop for British office hours. The breakthrough everyone wants, the fast, reliable method to crack each day's Enigma settings, remains elusive. They're still dependent on the perforated sheets technique passed along by Polish cryptographers before the war. It's a mechanical method, laboriously checking indicator patterns against pre-calculated grids. It works sometimes, but it's slow, and it requires the Germans to continue their current indicator procedure, encrypting the message key twice. If the Germans change that procedure, the perforated sheets become worthless. Herivel returns his attention to the plugboard problem in front of him. His evening insight has joined the pile of clever theories that looked promising, but led nowhere. The war doesn't care about elegant ideas. It cares about readable messages, decoded fast enough to matter. March passes into April. The Herivel squares show nothing. The crisis, May 1st, 1940. Hut 6. The change hits like a hammer. German signals intercepted overnight have a new format. The message keys, those critical 3 letters that tell the receiving operator how to set his rotors, are no longer encrypted twice. The repetition that made the perforated sheet method possible is gone. Welchman calls an emergency meeting. His face is grim. "We're locked out," he tells the assembled codebreakers. The careful architecture of their attack, built on Polish foundations and refined over months of effort, has collapsed. They can't read the new messages. And yesterday's keys won't help with today's traffic. The Germans change settings daily. The timing couldn't be worse. Europe teeters on the edge of catastrophe. The phony war, that strange period of declared conflict but limited fighting, is ending. Everyone knows the Wehrmacht is about to move. Norway and Denmark have already fallen. The question isn't whether Germany will strike west, but when. And now, at the moment when the British Expeditionary Force needs every scrap of intelligence, every decoded warning of German movements, Bletchley Park has gone blind. Herivel looks at the latest Herivel square. Still nothing. His theory hasn't saved them. The desperate hope that lazy operators would reveal their ring settings remains just that, hope. The meeting breaks up. Men return to their stations to attack the problem from other angles. Sillies, those repeated patterns when operators choose obvious message keys like AAA or their girlfriend's initials. Any operator mistake, any human weakness that might crack open the cipher. The Herivel tip is still active, still being tested. But 9 weeks have passed with no results. Time is running out. May 10th. The pattern emerges. Bletchley Park. Dawn. The German invasion of Holland and Belgium began before sunrise. By the time the morning intercepts reach Hut 6, Wehrmacht columns are already racing across the Low Countries, and the Luftwaffe owns the skies. The radio traffic is overwhelming. German signals units, suddenly thrown into full combat operations, flood the airways. Every frequency alive with encrypted orders, situation reports, targeting coordinates. The listening stations work frantically to capture it all, knowing that somewhere in this torrent of ciphertext are the German battle plans. David Rees is plotting the morning ground settings. It's become routine. Fill in the Herivel square, see random scatter, move on to other attack methods. His pencil marks the coordinates, BDF, then CEG, then ACF. He stops. There's a cluster. Not the random distribution they've seen for 9 weeks, but a definite concentration of points in one area of the grid. Multiple German operators, in the chaos and urgency of the invasion's first hours, have done exactly what Herivel predicted. Set their rings and barely bothered to turn the rotors before sending their first message. "John!" Rees's voice cuts through the hut's noise. "John, look at this!" Herivel crosses to the table, sees the cluster, feels the jolt of recognition, his theory finally visible in the data. But seeing the pattern isn't the same as breaking the code. The cluster suggests the ring settings are somewhere near BDF, but near covers hundreds of possibilities. They still need to test combinations, still need to work through the plugboard settings, still need hours of calculation, hours they don't have. The German army is advancing. The Luftwaffe is bombing Dutch cities. Every minute of delay means British forces moving blind. The team throws itself at the problem. Welchman pulls resources from other tasks. The replica Enigma machines clatter as cryptanalysts test settings near the cluster point. The Herivel tip has given them a starting position. Now comes the grinding work of converting that advantage into readable messages. The breakthrough doesn't come that day, or the next. May 20th, the key turns. Hut 6, morning shift. The message is from May 20th. 2 days old, which might as well be ancient history in the fluid chaos of the invasion. But it's readable. German plaintext, converted from cipher by the combination of Herivel's clustering insight, sillies spotted by sharp-eyed cryptanalysts, and hours of patient calculation. The first Luftwaffe red message, broken since the procedure changed 3 weeks ago. The technique is proven. The Herivel tip works, not as an instant solution, but as the critical first step that makes all the others possible. By identifying where the ring settings probably are, it transforms an impossible problem into a merely difficult one. More messages follow. The codebreakers settle into a new rhythm. Watch for the morning cluster. Use it to estimate ring settings. Deploy sillies and other operator errors to narrow the possibilities. Test solutions on the replica Enigmas. It's still hard work, still requires skill and persistence. But it's working. The decoded messages flow to the intelligence analysts. Luftwaffe orders, bombing targets, unit positions. The information comes too late to stop the German breakthrough at Sedan or save the Dutch army. But as the British Expeditionary Force fights its desperate retreat toward Dunkirk, the intelligence helps. Not enough to change the outcome of the Battle of France, but enough to save lives, to help the evacuation planners, to give commanders some sense of German intentions. In Hut 6, there's no celebration, just the quiet satisfaction of problems solved and the immediate pressure of tomorrow's messages, which will require tomorrow's solutions. The Germans change their keys every day at midnight. Every morning the work begins again. The hunt continues June 1940. The Herivel tip becomes standard procedure. Each morning, the first intercepts from German stations get priority handling. The squares fill with clusters, not every day, not from every operator, but often enough. Combined with sillies and the other operator errors that careless or rushed cipher clerks produce, it keeps Hut 6 in the game. But it's temporary, and everyone knows it. German signal security will tighten. Officers will crack down on lazy morning routines. The clusters will disappear as operators learn to randomize properly. The real solution is already in development. Alan Turing's bombs, electromechanical machines designed to systematically test Enigma settings at speeds no human team can match. When the bombs come online in numbers, they'll render the Herivel tip obsolete. Until then, Herivel's February evening insight keeps the intelligence flowing. Luftwaffe messages decode throughout the summer of 1940. During the Battle of Britain, when Fighter Command needs every advantage against the German bomber formations, Bletchley provides targeting intelligence derived from Enigma traffic cracked open by sleepy operators and the mathematicians who understood human nature. Herivel himself continues his work in Elmer's school and later sections of the expanded Bletchley operation. His name becomes attached to his discovery, the Herivel tip, Herivelismus in the German-influenced jargon of the codebreakers. But the recognition is internal, classified, invisible to the world outside. The war goes on. The methods evolve. By 1941, the bombs are operational, and the dependence on operator errors decreases. The Herivel tip fades from daily use, its critical moment past. But for those months between May and the arrival of sufficient bombs, months when Britain stood alone and every decoded message mattered, a 23-year-old mathematician's bet on human laziness helped keep the lights on. The Weight of Silence, Bletchley Park, December 1945. The war in Europe ended in May. Japan surrendered in August. Now comes the harder part: forgetting. The Official Secrets Act binds everyone who worked at Bletchley. The techniques, the successes, the role of Enigma decryption in Allied victory, all of it sealed under classifications that might never be lifted. John Herivel returns to civilian life carrying knowledge he cannot share. The evening walk, when inspiration struck. The morning David Rees spotted the cluster. The satisfaction of seeing his theory work when it mattered most. He can't tell colleagues, can't write papers, can't mention it in job applications or explain the gap in his academic record. The mathematics world will know him for his other work, but his contribution to winning the war must stay silent. This is the bargain everyone at Bletchley made. Gordon Welchman, who built Hut 6 into an efficient intelligence factory, returns to Cambridge. David Rees takes up his mathematical career, his wartime insight about operator errors locked away. Thousands of others disperse back into ordinary life, carrying extraordinary secrets. The mansion at Bletchley becomes decrepit. Huts fall into disrepair. The bombs are destroyed. Physical evidence of the code-breaking effort disappears, hidden or dismantled in the name of secrecy. It will be decades before the story emerges. The 1970s bring partial declassification. Alan Turing's role becomes public, though his full story, his treatment by the government he served, his tragic death, adds bitter notes to the triumph. Other names surface slowly: Welchman, Knox, Rees, Herivel. By then, they're old men or already gone. The moment when Herivel walked the grounds in February 1940 and understood that tired operators might betray their ring settings, that flash of insight is decades past. But it happened, and for a few critical months in 1940, when Britain desperately needed to read German intentions, it worked. The Herivel tip stands as testament to a particular kind of warfare, not fought with guns or bombs, but with mathematics and psychology. An understanding that machines don't make mistakes, but the humans operating them do. And sometimes, in the cold logic of code breaking, human error on one side becomes human insight on the other. The cluster in the May 10th Herivel Square pointed toward German ring settings. But it pointed toward something else too: the way wars are won not just by brilliant engineering, but by understanding the people behind the engineering, their routines, their shortcuts. their very human tendency to take the easy path on a cold morning when no one seems to be watching. Someone was watching. A young mathematician who bet on tired operators and morning routines. And for a few months in 1940, that bet helped crack the uncrackable.